The film opened with a peaceful rural scene, the sound of birds chirping, a gentle breeze rustling through the trees, and the aroma of cooked rice spreading from the small kitchen where Ji was carefully preparing each dish. She had returned to her hometown a year ago to open a homestay, where tourists could stop and rest and experience a tranquility that was very different from the noisy city. Wanting to develop this land, she prepared a lavish meal to welcome an investor. But just when everything was going smoothly, the tables and chairs suddenly shook, making her think there was an earthquake. Running outside to check, she found out that it was Dahai, a notorious rogue in the village, leading people to drive excavators to destroy the homestay in order to build a chemical plant. Ji and her little assistant hurried to stop them, but words didn't make him flinch, so she risked her life and rushed out to block the excavator, asserting that the opening of this homestay had been agreed upon by Secretary Ma and the village chief. However, Dahai didn't respect anyone until the village chief himself arrived and scolded him severely, causing him to temporarily back down. But with just a few more words, he persuaded the village chief that building the chemical plant was for the benefit of the villagers. Finally, the village chief set a condition. If she could pay the land rent for the next 10 years in the last 3 months, she would be allowed to continue her business. With no better choice, she had to agree, because at least there was still hope. While she was urgently preparing to welcome the investor, a strange man suddenly appeared, and she accidentally bumped into him, leaving a lipstick stain on his shirt. He seemed to recognize her, but she thought he was Director Wei, the important investor, so she invited him in to enjoy the lavish meal that she and her assistant had painstakingly prepared. She didn't forget to introduce that the scenery here was very suitable for tourism development, and that the investment would never lose money. The man kept nodding and said that he came here to save everyone, making everyone think that they had succeeded until they received a text message informing them that the plane carrying the real investor would arrive the next day. Everyone immediately panicked and asked who he was, so he took out a photo taken with Ji. At this time, she remembered that he was Jiang Chung, a junior classmate from back in the day who confessed that he liked a senior classmate, but she at the time didn't realize that person was her. Because his appearance was now very different, she didn't recognize him. That night, Jiang Chung came to talk to her, both of them embarrassed by the misunderstanding this morning. When he asked if he could stay for 2 days, she agreed because the homestay still had many empty rooms. Sitting and chatting more, Jiang Chung asked about the relationship between her and the senior, and she said they broke up. Hearing that, he didn't comfort her, but smiled very brightly, making her confused. Then he seriously recounted that a meteorite was about to fall in this area, and he came to warn them. But she thought he was still childish, so she didn't believe him. The next morning, when the staff and assistant went out to welcome the investor, they only saw Jiang Chung driving back and saying that the other person was carsick in the back, causing everyone to hurry and help him to rest. Ji personally took Director Wei into the most special room. He quickly decided to invest as soon as he saw that this place was so wonderful. But when Jiang Chung came in and whispered her not to invest because this place was about to be destroyed by a meteorite, she didn't care. Afterwards, she suddenly collapsed on the bed and burst into tears, causing Jiang Chung to panic and cover her mouth, but it was too late. Wei heard the sound and rushed in to stop them. Then the 4 of them sat down to eat, and Wei explained that she was sad because she had caught her boyfriend cheating, not because of Jiang Chung. But he mentioned the meteorite, so he was kicked out, and he had to climb onto the roof, using a telescope to follow that meteorite alone. The next morning, Jiang Chung hurried to Secretary Ma to warn him about the meteorite that was about to fall on the village. But he thought he was a new employee of the homestay causing trouble, so he didn't address the problem for him. Since no one believed him, Jiang Chung had to leave, thinking as he walked that as long as Ji was still here, he wouldn't leave and would definitely think of a way to save everyone. When he returned, he saw Dahai leading the villagers to accuse Ji of losing money on the vegetable business. He forced her to take all the responsibility because she was the one who suggested to the village chief that the villagers grow vegetables, and he intended to get physical. Jiang Chung stepped out to stop him. The little assistant quickly ran to find Secretary Ma to come back and resolve the situation, but Dahai stubbornly didn't listen to anyone. Because time was running out, Jiang Chung shouted for everyone to run away, but he made a fuss and said that if it wasn't resolved clearly today, no one would be allowed to leave. Out of options, Jiang Chung had to accept that he would sell these vegetables to resolve the situation. Dahai applauded and challenged that if he didn't sell all of them, he would have to bear all the losses. Jiang Chung immediately ran off to call his friend who worked at the supermarket to ask for help. Then everyone in the homestay, along with the villagers and even Secretary Ma, participated in harvesting vegetables. The little assistant paid special attention to Secretary Ma, offering water, wiping sweat, and always following him. When Ji was offered a drink by a man, she accidentally touched his hand, causing her to startle and feel itchy all over. The little assistant revealed that Ji suffered from a fear of men, which surprised Ms. Lin. Jiang Chung ran around urging everyone to speed up because he knew the time of the meteorite's fall was approaching, while Secretary Ma calmly told everyone to take their time. Finally, Jiang Chung grabbed the loudspeaker and announced that he would stop harvesting in just 1 minute, causing everyone to immediately double their speed. He hurriedly searched for Ji Yi in the crowd, thinking that if he had to die, he wouldn't regret dying with her. In the final seconds, he ran over and suddenly kissed her. Ji Yi was shocked and slapped him, scolding him for being crazy. But no meteorite fell, as he said. Only a brilliant meteor shower stretched across the sky. Everyone looked up and made a wish. The little assistant gently looked towards Secretary Ma and proactively took his hand, and he smiled and accepted it. While the Hai was happily gambling with his cronies, someone hurriedly ran over and whispered that the old man who frequently appeared here to gamble was Ji Yi's biological father. As soon as he heard that name, his eyes lit up, and he immediately left the gambling table to find him. Then he deliberately showed him his daughter's homestay business to see the carefree and comfortable life his daughter was enjoying. As soon as old Shin saw that scene, he became enraged and immediately went to Ji Yi to demand money. She was extremely panicked at being found by him, both worried and helpless. She tried to beg him to leave, but he absolutely refused to let go. He forced her to return home to marry the man he had chosen, just to get the bride price to take gambling. When she resolutely refused, he changed his tone, demanding that she give him money right there on the spot, and then she could do whatever she wanted. Ji Yi calmly said that the homestay had just started operating and she hadn't earned much, so she didn't have money to give him. Hearing that, he went crazy, grabbed her hand, and pulled her hard, causing her allergy to flare up, making her itchy all over. Then he even shoved her, causing her to almost fall. Fortunately, Jiang Chung appeared in time, rushing over to catch her in the nick of time. Seeing him intending to rush in to hit his daughter, he immediately stood in front of her and held his hand tightly. Old Shin loudly proclaimed that he had the right to teach his daughter, but Jiang Chung didn't give in, squeezing his hand so hard that he couldn't bear the pain. Finally, he had to reluctantly promise that he wouldn't come back to cause trouble again. But as soon as he was released, he ran straight to the yard, shouting loudly to get the villagers to come. He fabricated a story about his daughter taking the bride price to open a homestay without worrying about treating her father's illness. The Hai also quickly appeared, fueling the fire, saying that Ji Yi was an ungrateful and wicked daughter. The villagers began to discuss animatedly. Ji Yi tried to explain, but no one believed her. Finally, Jiang Chung had to step out, saying loudly that he would pay the money for her and that he was her man. Old Shin didn't believe it, knowing that his daughter suffered from a fear of men. Jiang Chung didn't say another word, and then bowed his head and kissed her in front of everyone, causing her to be stunned and speechless. Then he advised him to leave, promising to bring the money another day, but he still insisted on having the money immediately. Jiang Chung had no other choice but to call a friend to sell his beloved car. He requested to transfer 500,000 yuan to Old Shin's account, but his friend could only come up with 300,000. He agreed without hesitation, and then took off his wristwatch worth 200,000 yuan and gave it to him to make up the amount. Finally, he was willing to leave. Jiang Chung dismissed the crowd and then turned to tell Ji Yi that the money was from borrowing from his friends and the watch was just a gift, telling her not to keep it in her heart. But in her eyes at that time was surprise, confusion, and pity. Meanwhile, Old Shun, having just gotten the money, immediately returned to the gambling house. Seeing his son come to ask for money to marry a wife, he hid the watch in his sleeve, only giving him 150,000 yuan and chasing him away, while he said that he would find a way to squeeze more money from Ji Yi. Just then, the woman sitting next to him acted coquettishly, saying she wanted to buy a new bag. He agreed without hesitation, as if the money was his. On the way, Ji Yi accidentally bumped into an elderly woman. They both apologized and smiled kindly. The old woman gave her a small cake. As soon as she took a bite, she was suddenly stunned. The taste was so familiar that it made her choked up, because it was exactly like the cake her grandmother used to make when she was little. It had been so long since she had tasted the flavor of childhood again, so moved that she immediately asked the woman if she could teach her how to make this cake. The woman happily nodded in agreement. Then the two of them went to her house. In the small, cozy kitchen, she patiently taught her step by step. Her hands were clumsy, but her eyes sparkled with interest and gratitude. Finally, the first batch of cakes came out successfully, happiness evident in every feature. Meanwhile, Old Shun, Ji's father, was haunted by bad luck, causing him to lose everything, without a penny left to buy a bag for the woman next to him. In a fit of anger and craving for money, he thought of Ji Yi again, immediately tracking down to the homestay to cause trouble. He went to each room, banging on the doors and shouting his daughter's name, causing the guests staying there to panic. Up to 4 pairs of guests requested to check out and leave that day. Finally, he found the right room, leaving Ji with no way to escape, forcing her to show her face. He immediately demanded money, saying that her younger brother was about to get married, and 500,000 yuan was simply not enough. Ji resolutely refused to give him money and also didn't allow him to mention her mother. She coldly said that if he didn't leave, she would call the police, but he didn't show any fear. On the contrary, he grabbed her and landed a painful slap. At that moment, Jiang Chung at the front desk received the news that Chi's father was causing trouble again. He hurriedly ran over and managed to block the second slap. His eyes were icy, angry, but still remained calm. Ji looked up, her eyes filled with tears but determined. She told her father that after that slap, she owed him nothing from now on. Consider at the end of any connection, strangers like water. Seeing that, the little assistant ran over to defend Ji, but he raised his hand to hit her. But this time, she was no longer the weak girl she used to be. She stepped forward to stand in front of the little girl, decisively blocking his hand. Her eyes sharp, her voice trembling but resolute, she shouted that it was enough. For so many years I've tried to escape the past, trying to forget all the pain and suffering that you have caused. I have worked so hard to get a house, to get relatives, to get a place that belongs to me. If you dare to come back here again, I will definitely call the police. But he still wouldn't let go, continuing to struggle and shout, causing Secretary Ma and the homestay staff to rush in to intervene. Finally, the surrounding villagers heard the noise and rushed in to chase him away, driving him away like a fierce beast. Meanwhile, Jiang Chung went to find Yi. He saw her quietly standing under the heavy rain with a sad face. He stepped over, intending to say something, but she turned to leave. He then pulled her back, threw his umbrella on the ground, and wrapped his arms around her tightly, sharing the small umbrella she was holding, and gently said that if you want to cry, just cry, don't hold it back anymore, because now you no longer have to face it alone. Hearing that, he couldn't hold it in anymore, and burst into tears in his warm embrace, letting the rainwater and tears mix together to wash away all the hidden injuries she had been carrying for so long. Jiang Chung, Ji, the little assistant Meng Jiao, and Secretary Ma were sitting together eating fruit and drinking tea in a very warm atmosphere when suddenly someone called Jiang Chung, asking him to return, but he didn't agree, only looking towards Yi and saying that he had to stay to do the most important thing in his life. At this time, Ji was engrossed in introducing the slogan she had built to promote the homestay, helping to attract more tourists, which made everyone very interested and admired her talent. She also proposed the idea of combining opera with afternoon tea because that was a special feature of the area. Secretary Ma said that he knew a very famous opera teacher and promised to introduce them to try learning. Ji and Jiang Chung went together to learn, and the teacher taught them very attentively, from gestures, eyes, to emotions. Everything had to be soulful. They both diligently and tirelessly practiced for many days. Then a subordinate reported to the High that Ji was learning opera, and he decided to stop her so that she couldn't achieve her goal. That night, the High secretly went to the practice room, locked the door from the outside, and then cut off the power cord. Although he was shocked, he still tried to do it to the end. Seeing the power go out, Jiang Chung told Ji to stop practicing and go back. She was afraid of the dark, so she clung to him. The two groped to the door, but couldn't open it. Ji panicked and screamed that there was a ghost, causing him to startle as well. But he reassured her and went to check. Because it was too dark, he flicked a lighter towards the area with the shadow. Unexpectedly, the place was a glass door, causing the lighter to fall onto a pile of cloth. The fire broke out and quickly spread around. Seeing the fire, Dahai panicked and ran away. Inside, the fire grew bigger and bigger, causing Jiang Chung to have to break the window to escape, but unexpectedly behind the glass was an iron grating. He couldn't do anything. Ji was starting to not be able to withstand the smoke, so he tried to use all his strength to hit the main door hard. The next day, Ji woke up and found herself lying on the bed. She was surprised and asked Meng Jiao why she was here. She told her that Jiang Chung had brought her back, and that last night the practice room had caught fire and that they were almost in danger. Ji walked out of the room, and everyone worriedly asked her about it, and then angrily cursed the person who had blatantly set the fire. Although Jiang Chung was very worried, he still took the blame, saying the truth was that he caused the fire, even though it wasn't what he wanted. Meng Jiao angrily blamed him, but either way, what was most important was that everyone was safe. In the village, people gathered to discuss the house fire last night. Some people said they saw Jiang Chung carrying Ji out of the fire, so they suspected the relationship between the two and then speculated that they were a couple, even husband and wife. On the way, Jiang Chung and Ji met an aunt, and she told him that since he was Ji's husband, he had to cherish her because she was both beautiful and talented. Ji hurriedly explained, but Jiang Chung seemed very happy at the rumor, and before leaving, he turned around and told the aunt to spread the rumor more. At this time, Meng Jiao was going to stick and distribute flyers to inform everyone about the opera that would take place in the evening at the homestay. One person passed by. She gave them a flyer. They nodded but dropped it on the ground and left, causing her to feel sad. However, not long after that, people in the village began to come in large numbers and showed clear interest. She quickly handed out all the flyers and hoped that everyone would come. That night, Jiang Cheng and Ji Yi were dressed up neatly, elaborately dressed, and then stepped onto the stage to perform. The audience watched attentively, and everyone was fascinated. Meanwhile, Dahai secretly planned to sabotage. He secretly cut the rope that was fixing the sign behind them. When Jiang Cheng stepped off the stage to bow to the audience, the rope was cut. He turned around and saw the sign falling towards Yi and immediately used all his strength to rush over, using his body to shield her. Jiang Cheng was seriously injured and had to be hospitalized because he rushed out to protect Yi. She was very worried, so she told everyone to go back first while she stayed to take care of him. In the quiet moment, she sat beside his bed watching him and then thought about the moment he rushed out without hesitation to shield her and soon fell asleep in fatigue. Later, Jiang Cheng woke up. What he saw was he was slumped on his arm. The corner of his lips slightly curled up into a smile and pretended to cry out in pain to tease her. She startled and wanted to call the doctor, but he hurriedly stopped her. She said in a serious voice that the doctor had instructed him to rest for a few days before leaving the hospital, and then blamed and scolded him for being foolish and childish when he didn't care about the danger. Hearing her say he was childish, Jiang Cheng thought seriously and decided to appear more mature. So he suddenly said he wanted to take a shower and asked her to take off his clothes for him because his arm was sore and he couldn't move. Ji Yi shyly blushed, but because she was worried about him, she had to close her eyes to help him take off his shirt. Unexpectedly, after taking it off, he immediately raised her chin and forced her to open her eyes, and then flexed his muscles to show off his body with an extremely proud expression to prove that he had truly grown up. Clearly, he was no longer in pain, but also released another sentence asking to take off his pants, causing her to turn purple with anger. When he was discharged from the hospital, he tried to catch up to explain, but she didn't want to listen, even telling him to stay away. At that moment, Meng Jiao suggested taking a group photo to post along with the performance of the opera to help attract attention and increase the reputation of the homestay. Ji Yi reluctantly agreed, although on the surface she was still angry, but in her heart she knew he didn't have bad intentions. When Meng Jiao was fast asleep, her phone continued to report messages. She turned it on and saw that their account had skyrocketed in the number of followers. Overjoyed, she immediately ran to tell everyone to organize a lavish celebration party. The next day, while walking on the road, Ms. Lin suddenly leaned over and asked Yi if Jiang Cheng liked her. Ji immediately denied it and said that he was just a junior and that it was only out of gratitude for helping him in the past that he treated her so well. However, Ms. Lin didn't believe it. She firmly said that her judgment was correct and that there were clearly feelings between the two. When they returned to the homestay, Meng Jiao and Ma Yi also returned, both with gloomy faces announcing that they still hadn't sold the remaining vegetables. Seeing the situation wasn't good, Jiang Cheng came up with a unique idea to use the vegetables to make kimchi. Everyone applauded after hearing it, because they thought it was very reasonable, so they decided to go find Sister Wang to ask for guidance. Ji Yi then reminded Jiang Cheng that Sister Wang was notoriously difficult, but he was very confident, telling her to trust his gift of gab. At first, when Ji spoke to ask for help, Sister Wang resolutely refused, but when Jiang Cheng started telling the story of Secretary Ma's son being in love with the homestay's employee, Sister Wang suddenly felt interested and eager to hear more, so she agreed without hesitation to teach them how to make kimchi. Meanwhile, at the homestay, Meng Jiao and Ma Yi went into the kitchen together. He proactively helped her put on an apron, but right then she suddenly turned around, causing him to accidentally embrace her waist. The two looked at each other shyly, their eyes full of embarrassment and emotion. The next morning, suddenly the homestay gate rang with the sound of firecrackers, and a red carpet was spread out. Ji Yi and Jiang Cheng ran out to see, and discovered a strange man had appeared. He was Su Yang, Ji Yi's old classmate, and upon meeting again, he acted extremely close and natural, as if he was at home, which made Jiang Cheng uncomfortable. He bragged about having a luxury car and invited Meng Jiao to go for a ride if she liked, making her excited and leave immediately. Hearing these words, Jiang Cheng only curled up his lips in a smile. Ji Yi then pulled Ms. Lin, her investor, over to chat with Su Yang. Jiang Cheng then quickly pulled Ji Yi aside to remind her that this classmate looked untrustworthy. After finding out that he wanted to rent a room, Jiang Cheng then went out and deliberately introduced the most expensive room that could enjoy the scenery and said that it was very suitable for successful and charismatic people like him. Hearing this, Su Yang acted like he had a lot of money, so he agreed right away. When it was time to pay, he was shocked because the price was too high, but he still had to pretend to be happy and said for Ji Yi to continue doing her work and let Meng Jiao show him the room. Seeing this, Ji Yi reminded Jiang Chang that he shouldn't do this, but he thought that he was only trying to make money for the homestay, so there was nothing wrong with it, and also said that the suit he was wearing wasn't custom-made. Ji Yi didn't believe it, because she didn't think Jiang Chang had ever worn that kind of thing to know. The next day, Su Yang happily went to put flowers in the empty vases in the reception area when Ms. Lin and Ma Yi happened to pass by. As soon as Ma Yi looked, he recognized that those were the flowers he had planted. He immediately asked who had cut his ornamental flowers, and Su Yang then brought out another bouquet and gave it to Ms. Lin, causing Ma Yi to turn purple with anger. After Su Yang found out that those flowers were planted by Ma Yi, he seemed a little flustered but still tried to maintain an indifferent look. He said that he would just pay for them, causing Ma Yi to get so angry that he wanted him to replant all the flowers he had cut by himself. Because Ms. Lin was present, Su Yang had to reluctantly nod his head in agreement. The next day, Ms. Lin discovered a very serious matter. The rice that the homestay was selling had very bad reviews from netizens. They said the rice had worms and couldn't be eaten, followed by a series of negative comments that caused the homestay's reputation to plummet. She decided to contact the accounts that had left negative reviews so that if it was truly the homestay's fault, she would compensate them immediately in order to handle the crisis as soon as possible. At this time, Su Yang entered with a messy, standing-up hairstyle and seemed very tired from planting flowers, but was hopping around acting like he was full of energy, and no one cared because everyone was worried about the spoiled rice. In another place, Dahai was sitting with his close group of villagers. On the surface, he kept saying it was for the benefit of the villagers, but in reality, it was only to cause trouble for Ji Yi in order to take revenge for the past. At that moment, Secretary Ma hurriedly ran back to the homestay to announce that he had investigated and found that the spoiled rice was made by Dahai colluding with some relatives in the village. Meng Jiao and Ms. Lin were extremely angry after hearing the news. Even though he was from the village, he would actually do such immoral things. They quickly dragged Ji Yi and Jiang Cheng to where Dahai was meeting to confront him. They kicked down the door and stormed in with bags of spoiled rice in their hands, forcing him to explain clearly. At first, he still quibbled and denied the crime. But when Ji pointed out the evidence on the packaging, he panicked and slumped into his chair, speechless. Everyone threatened to call the police, and one of them was too scared and hurriedly begged for forgiveness and promised not to do it again, but was immediately slapped by Dahai. Then they intended to leave, but Jiang Cheng tripped them, causing them all to fall head over heels in anger. That weekend, a large group of tourists flooded into Nanming village, and everyone praised the beautiful scenery. Meng Jiao was live streaming when two guests came to ask to rent a room. The girl greatly admired Meng Jiao and asked to take a picture with her. After being agreed, she was very happy, but because the number of guests was too large, all the rooms were full, so the two had to leave regretfully. Later, Ms. Lin announced extremely good news to Meng Jiao. A reporter for the television station would come to interview her tomorrow. While Jiang Cheng was participating in pottery making with everyone, the power suddenly went out, causing him to hurry to find Secretary Ma to report it. On the way, he accidentally overheard Su Yang talking to a group of thugs about hiring people and hiring cars. The content seemed shady, so Jiang Cheng intended to take out his phone to record his evidence, but he quickly left. A moment later, Ma Yi was also present to check the electrical system and ensure that the power would not be lost again. Jiang Cheng then rushed in to call Ms. Lin to warn her about Su Yang, but she wasn't there, so he had to recount everything to everyone. After hearing it, everyone agreed that if what Jiang Cheng said was true, they had to immediately warn Ms. Lin to stay away from that dangerous person. Meng Jiao was angrily scolding Su Yang, saying that if he was really a scumbag, she would not hesitate to tear him to pieces. Just then, he walked in from outside, causing the group to startle. Everyone quickly changed the subject, and he gave Ji Yi a bag of food and said casually that he was developing feelings for Ms. Lin, hoping everyone would help say some good words to her. However, everyone showed a clear attitude of displeasure. Only Ji still kept her calm and gently continued the conversation. After he left, the group immediately discussed a plan to investigate the truth, deciding to find his two accomplices to interrogate them clearly and start tracking down clues from the surveillance cameras around the village to see where they were. At dinner, only Jiang Cheng, Ji Yi, Ms. Lin, and Su Yang sat together. He suddenly spoke up and proposed to move in with Ms. Lin to protect her, causing both Jiang Cheng and Ji Yi to feel extremely worried. He also grabbed Ms. Lin's hand and earnestly begged, causing her to waver somewhat. Fortunately, Ji Yi quickly diverted the attention by praising the delicious food and changed the subject. She asked Ms. Lin if she could stay here for a while, and Ms. Lin curiously asked the reason. Ji Yi was a little embarrassed, and Jiang Cheng quickly answered for her, saying that Ji Yi had just been diagnosed with a mild psychological disorder and shouldn't live alone, so she needed someone by her side. Hearing that, Ms. Lin agreed without any doubt, while Su Yang was annoyed because his plan didn't work out. He switched to a pitiful face and said that his younger brother was sick with leukemia and had to be hospitalized, and he needed to borrow 100,000 yuan for medical expenses and earnestly hoped that Ms. Lin would help. However, she didn't have that much money, so she had to transfer 20,000 yuan to him first. Jiang Cheng and Ji Yi were very upset after hearing that, but couldn't do anything. Jiang Cheng then texted Ma Yi to start the action. He went on the loudspeaker to announce to the whole village that he thanked Su Yang for spending so much in the village over the past time and that he would be leaving soon. So he would dedicate a farewell singing performance to him. His two accomplices, upon hearing that news, suspected that Su Yang intended to run away alone, so they immediately went to the homestay to find him. Su Yang panicked and intended to run away, but was discovered and held back. At this time, everything was exposed, and the two told all the conspiracies to deceive money, causing Ms. Lin to be completely disappointed. Everyone was also angry and no longer wanted to help him, so they let the two drag him away. Ms. Lin then went to find Meng Jiao to ask why she hadn't told her the truth when she already knew it. Meng Jiao gently said that it was because she was afraid of hurting her that she remained silent. Then the two of them went out for a drink to mend their close sisterly relationship. Jiang Cheng accidentally overheard Yi mentioning that her father was about to come and find her, so he immediately sped off to find him first. Unexpectedly, he saw him lying in the middle of the road because of an accident, so he hurriedly took him to the hospital for emergency treatment. Ji Yi also came there. Although she still had a lot of resentment in her heart because of the bad treatment she had received in the past, she still couldn't bear to abandon him in that situation. After he was stable, she went into the hospital room to ask him about it, and he said that he had come to find his son. She then called her younger brother to ask him to visit his father, but he indifferently said that he didn't have time, but in reality, he was busy gambling with Dahai. Ji Yi was very disappointed, but still patiently told her father, and then quietly left him to rest. He wanted to call her back, but his throat was choked up and he couldn't utter a word. Afterwards, she decided to go to the place to meet her unfilial younger brother. She scolded him for being heartless to his biological father, but he not only didn't repent, but also cursed her back. She angrily slapped him, causing him to lose his temper and push her, but fortunately Jiang Cheng arrived in time and caught her from the shove. Jiang Cheng took Ji Yi home. She intended to take out wine to drink to relieve her sadness, but he immediately stopped her, instead giving her a glass of fruit juice, and then asked caringly about the wound on her leg, then gently bent down and blew lightly, as if wanting to soothe her pain. Ji Yi accidentally looked out the door and saw Meng Jiao standing there looking, so she hurriedly pulled her leg back, full of embarrassment. Meng Jiao walked in, took a folder of documents, and then teased that the two of them should continue, making the atmosphere even more confused. Afterwards, she ran to find Ma Yi and complained. He intended to say something, but she was busy sorting the reports, so he gently turned her shoulders around, looked deeply into her eyes, and confessed the feelings he had been hiding for so long. She was also moved and admitted that since he had appeared, his image had filled her mind. Ma Yi mustered all his courage and said that he liked her, wanting to be with her. Meng Jiao couldn't hold back her tears when she heard that, and she rushed into his arms in a happy embrace. That night, everyone sat down to eat happily, witnessing the sweet moment of Ma Yi and Meng Jiao when the two officially made their relationship public, causing the whole table to be filled with congratulatory laughter. The next day, Jiang Cheng cheerfully showed off his pottery creation and then held up the gourd and pretended to be a character in Journey to the West, causing everyone to laugh. Ms. Lin walked out with a sad face. Everyone asked about it, and she told them that her mother was about to come and withdraw her investment because the money she had put into the homestay was borrowed from her mother, and her mother had not supported her coming here from the beginning, so this time would be very stressful. Jiang Cheng suggested that everyone go out for a day to clear their heads, but Ji Yi said that they could run away for a day, but couldn't run away forever. So everyone decided to stay and encourage Ms. Lin to regain her spirits and try their best to treat her mother well, hoping that she could change her mind. Early the next morning, Ji Yi and Meng Jiao dressed neatly and stood in front of the homestay gate to wait and welcome Ms. Lin's mother. Meng Jiao struggled to open the umbrella, and as the lady stepped out of the car, she revealed a clear attitude of contempt. Ji Yi proactively introduced herself and reached out her hand to shake, but she ignored it, stepped into the courtyard, and Secretary Ma also came out to greet her. She seemed a little better when she saw him, but still maintained an arrogant attitude because this place was just a poor rural area. Meng Jiao invited her to have breakfast, but she pretended to be tired and told her daughter to take her to her room to rest, saying that she couldn't eat those miscellaneous things. Ms. Lin took her mother to the most luxurious room, introducing the fresh, natural scenery, hoping she could change her mind, but she still resolutely forced her daughter to return to the city, not wanting to leave her in this rustic place any longer. Ms. Lin looked at her mother and said disappointedly that if she wanted to go back, she could go back first, but she wouldn't go anywhere. She had made up her mind to stay in this place. Meng Jiao invited Ms. Lin's mother to eat the scrambled eggs that her daughter liked very much, but she only indifferently commented that the dish was just average. Meng Jiao then explained that the dish was cooked by Ms. Lin herself specially for her mother, because she really cared about her. This surprised her because her daughter had never cooked before, and she was even more surprised to learn that she still remembered the simple scrambled eggs that she used to cook for her when she was little. At this time, she softened her voice and said truthfully that she had been secretly investigating the business of the homestay, and then told everyone to eat first, and they would talk more after they finished eating. Over the past few days, Jiang Cheng had been diligently learning pottery from his master, and he had been making clear progress, not only knowing how to make it, but also enthusiastically introducing the unique blue pottery products in the store to tourists, from the water cups to everything being crafted with exquisite detail, causing everyone to be amazed. Then he led the guests back to the homestay to visit and rest. Ms. Lin's mother also took the opportunity to stroll around the homestay and saw that the place was as her daughter had said, seeing everything was neatly organized, and her heart gradually changed. Sister Wang was leading a group of tourists to visit the village, and they praised the poetic beauty of the village as they walked. Sister Wang smiled proudly and said that it was all thanks to the efforts of the young people who had chosen to stay and build the homestay. Thanks to them that the new countryside had developed to what it was today. The group of about 20 guests led by Jiang Cheng had made the reception desk crowded. Ji, Yi, and Meng Jiao couldn't hide their joy when they saw the bustling customers. The staff announced that all the rooms were full, and Ji told everyone to speak quietly, while Meng Jiao went to find vacant rooms at other homestays to accommodate the guests in time. Then she and Ms. Lin sat in the room, holding hands full of delight. Ms. Lin happily told Meng Jiao that Chairman Cheng was coming to sign a contract for students to come for internships as research fellows. As soon as she mentioned it, he actually arrived. He didn't stop praising everyone, especially Jiang Cheng, when he learned that he had been chosen as the only disciple of old Zhou, the famous pottery artist. He also asked Ms. Lin if she was interested in turning this place into a creative base because the conditions were so suitable, and he would introduce more friends to co-develop the project. Ms. Lin happily agreed, and he also happily signed the contract. That evening, Ji, Yi, and Meng Jiao were busy preparing a meal for Ms. Lin and her mother. Ms. Lin gently apologized to her mother for getting angry earlier, but she still affirmed that she wanted to stay. Ji, Yi, and Meng Jiao also sincerely asked the lady to let Ms. Lin stay, without needing to invest more, because she was an indispensable part, an irreplaceable relative. This time, her mother didn't object, but silently nodded in agreement, causing Ms. Lin to be moved to tears. The next morning, everyone came out to see her mother off to the car to return. Ms. Lin held her mother's hand and told her not to let her father call her back, because she had truly chosen this place to bond with and start a career. Returning to her room, she suddenly received a letter from her mother with the content supporting her to continue investing, along with a small gift enclosed, causing her to be so moved that she burst into tears and hugged Meng Jiao tightly. Afterwards, the group sat together and waited for Yi to summarize the profits with a nervous mood. Meng Jiao was so scared that she had to cover her ears, not daring to listen. Ji slowly announced that after deducting all losses, the profit reached over 2,900,000 yuan, causing the group to erupt. Everyone sighed with relief and burst into joy. At Secretary Ma's office, someone came to announce about the students with difficult circumstances in the village. At that moment, Ji also just arrived and heard the story, so she immediately offered to use the profit from the homestay to donate to support them. The teacher and Secretary Ma were extremely moved, happy, and endlessly thanked her. That evening, Ji sat alone in the yard, gazing at the clear sky and green garden, her heart filled with memories of the times Jiang Cheng had said that he liked a senior, and when he first arrived here, he also said that he still couldn't forget that person. When she thought about every gesture, every look, and every caring action of Jiang Cheng towards her, she gradually realized that the person in his heart from beginning to end had always been her. At that moment, Jiang Cheng walked over and sat next to her. He softly said that at first, he came to this place only to warn and leave, but now he didn't want to leave anymore, because in this place there was someone that he couldn't leave. Saying this, he hesitated, causing Ji to wait nervously. After hesitating for a while, he finally stammered and admitted that the person he liked when he was still in school was her. Only because he was shy he didn't dare to say it. Now that he had the opportunity, he took out a ring and proposed directly, causing Ji to be both surprised and moved. However, before she could say anything, Dahai led people to disrupt the wedding. He loudly demanded the money that Ji had promised, threatening to tear down this place if she didn't give him the money. Ji calmly said that the money she had was submitted to the village, just as she had promised the village chief, and she had never promised anything to him. Meng Jiao stepped out, angrily scolding him for being evil. while the villagers were wholeheartedly supporting the homestay. Only he was always trying to cause trouble. He angrily intended to attack Ji Yi, but was blocked by Jiang Cheng. However, he continued to cause trouble, causing the village chief and the people to come to watch. The village chief immediately stood on Ji Yi's side. Seeing this, Dahai changed his face, ordering his people to go inside and take all the valuable things. This action was immediately shouted at and stopped by Ma Yi. The villagers also spoke up to dissuade him, but he still refused to stop and was finally forcibly dragged out. He went crazy and grabbed a large rock and threw it straight at Jiang Cheng. Seeing this, Ji Yi rushed out to shield him, but at that moment, she was unexpectedly rescued by someone else rushing over. When she saw his face clearly, Jiang Cheng found out that it was Mu Chan, the old senior who used to have a romantic relationship with Yi. Not long after that, a bustling wedding was held right at the homestay. It was the wedding of Meng Jiao and Secretary Ma. The two walked side by side, very beautiful, and received countless blessings from friends and villagers. Everyone took souvenir photos together amid bursts of laughter. Only Ji Yi quietly left the place with a sad face. Mu Chan immediately chased after her and stopped her, hoping she would come back to him. But she resolutely refused because she thought that since she had broken off the engagement, there was nothing between them. Jiang Cheng also appeared afterwards, unable to help but punch Mu Chan in the face for deceiving her of love and money. Mu Chan immediately punched back and loudly declared that only he could bring happiness to Ji Yi. Jiang Cheng then affirmed that the person she liked was him and almost rushed in to hit him again, but she ran out to stop him, her voice full of weariness and disappointment, saying that she didn't like anyone, and then turned around and left, leaving the two men standing there. During the evening of Meng Jiao and Ma Yi's wedding, the atmosphere was bustling, filled with cheerful laughter and conversation. They went from table to table offering drinks, and Ji Yi hurriedly walked in, but was immediately asked by Meng Jiao why she hadn't seen her all day. She only replied that she had gone to see two dogs fighting and then didn't say anything more, quietly sitting at the banquet table. Mu Chan also quickly followed and walked in, saying that he had just moved here. Although the two hosts found it strange, he still happily put money in the envelope as a small token and gave it back to Meng Jiao. After that, Mu Chan went to sit next to Ji Yi, and Jiang Cheng walked in with a bruised face to bless the newlyweds. When asked, he only laughed and said that he had been bitten by a dog, and then chose to sit next to him. Meng Jiao looked at Mu Chan and praised him for being both handsome and generous, and also introduced her two talented single friends. However, when Jiang Cheng said that he was Ji Yi's ex-boyfriend, Meng Jiao immediately changed her expression, angrily returned the envelope, and was about to scold him, but was pulled away by Ma Yi to offer drinks to another table. Ji Yi offered chopsticks to invite the two people sitting next to her to eat, but neither bothered to touch them, causing her to sulk and go inside first. The two men also quietly followed behind. The three were together in one room, without anyone saying a word. The atmosphere was heavy until someone ran in breathlessly to report that the whole village showed signs of poisoning. The three immediately ran outside to check, and discovered that there was no medicine in the village, the hospital was far away, and there were many people. The urgent situation caused Mu Chan to decide to go find Agastac rugosa leaves to boil and temporarily treat the poisoning. Ji Yi also wanted to go, but was stopped by Jiang Cheng because he was worried about her safety. However, when he realized that he didn't know what Agastac rugosa leaves looked like, he had to let her go with Mu Chan. The two quickly found the leaves and returned to boil the medicine and distribute it to the villagers. After everyone drank it, they felt much better, which put Meng Jiao at ease to some extent. As night fell, Mu Chan continued to sit and boil medicine. Ji Yi was helping by his side, and Jiang Cheng, using the reason that he was uneasy, also stayed. He sat on one side, watching the two of them being so close, and his heart was burning with jealousy. The next morning, Meng Jiao brought breakfast. Jiang Cheng intended to take it, but she snatched it back, saying that it was for Mu Chan. Then she also thanked him for what happened last night. Ji Yi also spoke up to thank Mu Chan, and he only gently said that there was no need to be polite because her business was also his business, causing Jiang Cheng to glare at him. Ma Yi had found a reason why the villagers were poisoned, so he went to visit each home and advised those who were seriously ill to go to the hospital for treatment. That evening, Jiang Cheng led a distinguished guest to meet Ji Yi and introduced him as a famous feng shui painter. Ji Yi showed great admiration and immediately introduced her homestay to him enthusiastically. Mr. Li thought the flower vase placed on the table was very beautiful, so he stepped closer to take a look, and Jiang Cheng happily introduced that it was a work made by his own hands, and even humorously said that it was a vase made from love. Mr. Li heard that and praised him because he found that he truly had a talent, having just started and already made such an exquisite item. Then, Jiang Cheng enthusiastically led him to see the rooms in the homestay. Meanwhile, Meng Jiao checked Mr. Li's account and told Yi that he was the chairman of the Famous Painters Association, and if he was willing to promote the homestay, it would truly be a golden opportunity. That afternoon, Secretary Ma came to find Jiang Cheng and asked him to go with him to teach the villagers how to make pottery. Mu Chen also volunteered to participate because he said he would be staying here for a long time, so Meng Jiao simply assigned the task of filming to him. After the pottery making class was the agricultural skills class taught by Mu Chen. Everyone was impressed by his bright appearance and deep knowledge. Sister Vong also turned to praise Yi for being blessed to be surrounded by boyfriends who were both talented and kind, but Yi immediately denied it and said that the relationship between them wasn't like that. At the end of the class, Mu Chen approached Yi, but Meng Jiao was curious and wanted to ask a few questions. At this time, Ji's pen accidentally fell down. She and Mu Chen bent down together to pick it up, causing Jiang Cheng, who was sitting behind, to feel very uncomfortable. That afternoon, while sitting at the reception desk, a villager ran over to find Mu Chen, asking him to go and see the land in the village because for some reason the trees were dying en masse. Mu Chen immediately agreed and went with them to the place. He examined the roots of the trees and then took soil and water samples back to check. At the same time, Meng Jiao discovered a video that was being spread online, which showed a scene of a janitor in the homestay using a towel to wipe the toilet bowl and then hanging it back up as if nothing had happened. Jiang Cheng suddenly remembered that a few days ago, he had welcomed a blogger to rent a room because the rooms were full, but she said she wanted to stay for 3 months, so he flexibly upgraded her to a special room. Unexpectedly, when she got there, she scattered everything around to take photos and then pretended to be an employee of the homestay, then deliberately filmed the scene of using a towel to wipe the toilet bowl to post online, and even called Yi to threaten her. Meng Jiao had also bumped into her once, but didn't see anything unusual besides the tattoo on her hand. The staff then kept calling to report to Meng Jiao that customers were all demanding to check out. They ran to check and saw that everyone was annoyed, grimacing and demanding their money back because they believed this place was not hygienic. He tried to explain, but no one would listen, making the situation very chaotic. Worried that there hadn't been a single customer for the past week, Ji felt the homestay was in dire financial straits. At this time, she truly felt the power of the internet. Ms. Lin suggested using money to smoothly handle the matter, but Ji didn't agree because if they did, there would surely be a second time, and she didn't want everyone's efforts to go down the drain. Meng Jiao then blamed that Jiang Cheng was never around during important times, not knowing where he went, acting all mysterious. Just as she finished speaking, he walked in with a beaming face and announced that he had found the evidence. He knew that the girl was a professional extortionist, so after leaving here, she would definitely go to another homestay to do the same thing. Therefore, he had secretly followed her and filmed the scene of her pretending to be a janitor to carry out the old trick again. Everyone was overjoyed after hearing that, but he only noticed the wound on Jiang Cheng's hand, which was caused by being hit while filming the evidence. He said that he had disguised himself as an employee at another homestay and then led her to a room that he had rented in advance, then waited until she wiped the toilet bowl and then suddenly rushed in to film the whole thing, causing her to panic, grab things, and hit him in order to escape. That night, he was too tired and fell asleep in the office, so Ji walked in and gently put a coat on him when he woke up. The two sat and chatted happily, and he continued to edit the evidence video in order to reclaim the homestay's innocence. The next day, good news came to everyone when Jiang Cheng's post received great attention from netizens and the true face of the blogger was exposed. No one would believe her words anymore. Outside the door were many people who had been victims of her, coming to thank Ji for standing up strongly to punish the fraudster. Ji went to find Jiang Cheng to thank him, and he told her not to be polite and then suddenly asked if Mu Chen had bothered her while he wasn't home these past few days. She said no, and then remembered what happened the night before. At that time, he sat and talked with her, holding her hand to apologize for what happened in the past, wanted to mend their relationship, but she pulled her hand back and refused decisively, also saying that the matter between the two had ended a long time ago and requested that he not drag Jiang Cheng into it, and then quickly left. The next day, everyone, along with Mu Chen, continued to survey the condition of the land in the village. He reassured everyone that he had sent the soil and water samples to the laboratory, so they only needed to wait for the results. Suddenly, someone ran over to report that their crops had flourished again thanks to the medicine provided by Mu Chen, and everyone praised him without holding back and even joked that they wanted to match Yi with him. She forced a smile, while Jiang Cheng could only curl up his lips full of displeasure. The group continued to take water samples in different areas. When they arrived at a treacherous place, Mu Chen reached out to lead Ji, but Jiang Cheng immediately cut in to compete, causing Mu Chen to clearly show a look of displeasure. Returning to the homestay, when Ji was standing on a chair reaching for a book, she accidentally slipped and Mu Chun rushed over to catch her and hold her in his arms. At that moment, Jiang Chung walked in and witnessed the scene. He misunderstood that she was a microwave and angrily slammed the door shut and left. Ji hurriedly ran after to explain and wanted to thank him for what he had done, but he didn't want to listen and only told her to go thank Mu Chun and then go back and think carefully about what he was to her and then answer. Ji went to the aunt who sold cakes to the homestay to give her some gifts and told her to make more cakes because recently customers had been ordering more. She also offered to help, but the aunt shook her head and said that she didn't need to because someone was already helping. Just as she finished speaking, Jiang Chung walked out from inside. His face, which was beaming, suddenly froze when his eyes met Ji's. That night, both of them tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Jiang Chung decided to read more books about plants. Not long after, Ma Yi came to report that Meng Jiao said Ji had been coughing nonstop. He only coldly replied that if she was coughing, she should take medicine, causing Ma Yi to helplessly intend to leave. But just as he turned around, he took a cough medicine from the drawer and stuffed it into Ma Yi's hand to give to her. But he didn't go, instead telling him to bring it to Yi. Not saying much, Jiang Chung just gave a medicine box and told her to rest, and he would take over her photography work. As soon as he said it, he took a picture and brought it to ask her if it was okay. She only replied that it was passable. Lin next to her then said that Ji's passable was already a very high compliment. Meng Jiao then pulled Jiang Chung out to teach him more about how to take pictures. At that moment, Mu Chun brought fruit to invite everyone. He and Lin peeled the fruit together and gave it to Ji, and she didn't refuse anyone, but received both. Witnessing this, Jiang Chung sulked and left without hesitation. Ji then went to find the aunt selling cakes to pay her. When asked about the boy who came with her last time, she replied that he had something to do and couldn't come. The aunt said that she used to argue with her husband all day long, and now she couldn't argue anymore because he was lying quietly under the ground. There was nothing left to worry about. Hearing those words made Ji think a lot on the way back. She accidentally met Meng Jiao, who invited her to go downtown to eat and drink. She had borrowed an electric bike, so the two set off together. It was getting dark and the rain and wind were getting stronger and stronger, but the two girls still hadn't returned, causing Jiang Chung and everyone at the homestay to be very worried. Ma Yi came to announce that there was a risk of flooding in the near future, which made Jiang Chung even more anxious, and he sped off to find them. He discovered that the phones and bikes of the two had been buried by trees and rocks, but he didn't see anyone, so he frantically screamed Ji's name. Finally, Ma Yi and Mu Chun were the ones who found them first. Mu Chun took off his jacket intending to put it on Ji, but this time she refused, and as soon as she heard Jiang Cheng's voice, she didn't care about the rain and wind anymore and ran to his side. Seeing that she was safe, he hugged her tightly in a burst of happiness. After everything calmed down, everyone opened a small party to celebrate that they had escaped danger. During the meal, Ma Yi announced the good news that the village had been installed with protective nets on the dangerous hillsides, which would limit the damage when the flood came. Mu Chun then praised him for being a good secretary who was always responsible for the villagers. After the meal, the group looked at the latest report on water source pollution. Mu Chun decided to personally survey it again, and Jiang Chung also quickly spoke up, demanding to go with him. The group went together to the only factory in the village because they suspected that this place was the cause of the pollution. After surveying around, they decided to go to the water source near the factory to check and discovered that the water source did indeed have signs of heavy pollution, but unfortunately, there was no clear evidence. That night, Jiang Chung decided to quietly go to the river behind the factory alone to photograph the scene of waste being discharged directly into the river without treatment. The next day, Ma Yi brought the photos as evidence to confront the owner of the chemical plant. He still tried to quibble, saying that treating waste was expensive and basically didn't care about Ma Yi. Ma Yi then went to thank Jiang Chung for what he had done for the village, causing Jiang Chung to feel a little embarrassed and felt that everything was very strange. They decided to wait for the water quality test report and then send a complaint to the Environmental Protection Bureau. Afterwards, Jiang Chung went to find Ji and asked her if she was still thinking about the agricultural pollution, and she only nodded slightly and said that she felt like something was wrong in her heart. He didn't say anything more and only gently took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders as a way to protect her silently. The next day, while Jiang Chung was sitting and playing games in the yard, Ji came to start conversation. She asked what he was thinking when he went to find her that day, and he only replied that his mind was blank at the time, only thinking about the one thing of finding her quickly, but felt that he was one step too late. He intended to say something more, but suddenly Mu Chun walked in and said that the supermarket needed agricultural products urgently, so they needed someone to transport them. She intended to go, but Jiang Chung took the task and said that he would go instead. Unexpectedly, on the way to transport the goods, Their car was hit head-on by a truck driving recklessly in the opposite direction, and then the driver fled. When Ji heard the news, she rushed to the hospital to visit Jiang Cheng. As soon as she saw him being bandaged all over, she couldn't hold back her tears and blamed herself, saying that if anything happened to him, she would bear the responsibility for the rest of her life, and then grabbed his hand and cried. At that moment, someone pulled open the curtain next to her, and it turned out that the person lying there was the real Jiang Cheng, and the person she was pitying was someone else. Jiang Cheng laughed and said that he had recorded all the words she had just said, causing her to be both embarrassed and angry, turning to wipe away her tears and then blaming him for why he had lied to her. Jiang Cheng didn't answer, but only hugged her to comfort her, while Mu Chun stood outside the door witnessing everything with eyes full of hatred. When he left, he used the excuse that his hand was still hurting to go see the doctor. But in reality, he secretly called the manager of the chemical plant to instruct him about something, and then took out a photo taken with Yi, burned it, and stomped on it mercilessly. Not long after, within the homestay, people began to spread the word that Mu Chun was about to leave this place because his task here had been completed. During the meal, Meng Jiao was still complaining that she didn't want to eat fruit, and Mu Chun then explained that there were many skin-beautifying ingredients in fruit, causing her to widen her eyes and eat immediately. He also said that there were still many other precious plants in the village that had the effect of nourishing the skin and rejuvenating, causing the group to be very interested, and Ma Yi immediately took out a notebook to carefully record each name he read out. Mu Chun came to see Ji Yi to say goodbye before leaving the village. She was surprised and asked why he was leaving so urgently. He intended to take her hand as if wanting to hold on to a bit of final affection, thinking that she couldn't bear to let him go, but she only gently urged him to go back quickly lest he miss something important. He said that he wanted to hear her say, "Please stay," but he only emphasized again that everything between them had ended a long time ago, causing his eyes to droop with disappointment. At the same time, the manager of a pharmaceutical company had scheduled a meeting with the director of the chemical plant at Ji's homestay to discuss a type of anti-inflammatory skincare product, but it had substandard ingredients, causing his boss to be extremely angry because this was a key project. The director of the chemical plant then said that they had high-quality raw materials on their side, but the price was not cheap at all. At that moment, Meng Jiao happened to overhear and walked in confidently, saying that she knew someone very good who could help everyone solve this problem, but the director of the chemical plant was afraid of losing a customer and loudly chased her out, and then told the manager of the pharmaceutical company to think very carefully. Meng Jiao then recounted the whole incident to Ms. Lin and discussed with Ji Yi about inviting Mu Chun to help make the skincare product, because if it was successful, it would bring great benefits to the whole village. Ji Yi and Ma Yi then went to find Mu Chun to offer assistance. He thought that Ji Yi was trying to hold him back, so he immediately agreed to stay. The next day, the manager of the pharmaceutical company came to find Meng Jiao to give her a business card and expressed his desire to meet the person who could help him. At that moment, Mu Chun appeared and the two quickly shook hands to cooperate. Not long after, Mu Chun came to play billiards and someone brought him a suitcase. He paid the person double and said that from now on that product had nothing to do with him. The next day, Mu Chun brought a complete skincare product sample as requested by the pharmaceutical company and said that he had added natural plants to increase its effectiveness but still ensured safety. The manager, after checking, said that he would go back to study it further, and if it was feasible, the company would immediately invest in production. Ji Yi felt that this project was a good opportunity for both parties, and Mu Chun was truly happy that he could help everyone. Meanwhile, Mr. Wu, the manager of the pharmaceutical company, had refused to cooperate with the chemical plant and decided to sign a business deal with Ji Yi's group, causing the director of the chemical plant to be so angry that he went crazy, tracking down to the homestay to question her for daring to ruin his business deal. He even intended to attack her, but Jiang Cheng appeared in time to block him, causing him to angrily leave in frustration. That evening, everyone opened a party, raising their glasses to celebrate the successful signing of the contract. However, Ji Yi and Jiang Cheng still felt that something was a bit unusual because the raw materials were suspiciously convenient, as if someone had arranged in advance. But after being reassured by everyone that it was okay, they gradually calmed down and continued to celebrate. Mu Chun said that he was taking medicine and couldn't drink alcohol, so he replaced it with water and toasted Jiang Cheng and Ji Yi, acknowledging his mistakes in the past, and then blessing the two, causing Jiang Cheng to be a bit surprised, but still happily accepted because that was exactly what he had been hoping for so long. The group continued to eat and drink happily amid laughter and bustling joy. Not seeing Ji Yi anywhere, Jiang Cheng worriedly called her, but unexpectedly the person who answered the phone was her father, with a trembling voice saying that Ji Yi was in trouble and begging him to bring 5 million yuan to the wood factory to redeem her, or there would only be a corpse left. Hearing this, he was extremely panicked, immediately took a suitcase of money and went to the meeting point with Mu Chun. He told Mu Chun to wait outside while he went inside to negotiate. Mu Chun only smiled sinisterly because all the things that had happened since he had appeared were part of a plan that he himself had arranged to target Ji. Inside the wood factory, Ji's father was slapped in the face by a thug, causing him to be confused and not understanding why he was being hit when he had only stayed at home all this time and not made enemies with anyone. Ji knew that they were targeting her, so she believed what her father said. Jiang Cheng carried the suitcase and walked in, demanding that they release the person first and then give him the money. But the leader didn't agree and even attacked Ji to force him to hand over the money. Worried about her safety, he had to agree. However, after receiving the money, they immediately turned their backs, not releasing the person but also beating him up. When he resisted, they threatened to pull Ji out, and he couldn't do anything, only knowing to endure the beatings to protect her. Each consecutive blow landed, causing him to fall to the ground, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Ji cried and begged in vain. At that moment, Ma Yi and the group rushed in to hit them to stop them, but they still couldn't stop them until they heard the news that the police were about to arrive, and then they ran away. A few were held back, but the one carrying the suitcase of money had escaped. After returning to the homestay, Ji's father admitted that he was a terrible father who had never cared about his daughter. Meng Jiao scolded him because she thought this case was caused by him, but Ji only said that they were targeting her, not him, and Meng Jiao had to apologize for wrongly accusing him. Afterwards, Ji went to meet the director of the chemical plant to clarify everything, but he firmly denied it. She then presented the recording of the confession of the kidnappers last night, and also suggested that if he wanted to get the order from Manager Wu, he had to agree to use the raw materials from her. At first, he didn't agree because he thought that his raw materials were hard-earned, but when she intended to leave with the recorder, he had to agree. Everything temporarily calmed down, but in her heart, Ji still couldn't help but be suspicious. Ji heard the news from Meng Jiao that Mu Chun was checking out and preparing to leave, so she hurriedly ran after him. He saw her rushing towards him and unconsciously remembered the time when they were in school, and she had also run toward him like that. She stopped in front of him only to say a word of thanks and told him to be careful on the road, without having any intention of holding him back as he had hoped. He sighed softly and said that he was sorry to her, and then suddenly called out Jiang Cheng, who was hiding in a corner. Jiang Cheng stepped out with a forced smile, saying that he only happened to be passing by and didn't intend to eavesdrop. Mu Chun looked at both of them and then said that he had to leave. Ji intended to see him off, but was stopped by Jiang Cheng because he was a man and didn't need to be seen off, and the car was about to arrive, so he smiled and waved goodbye to him. That evening at the homestay, Ma Yi came to announce that Director Zhang wanted to expand the factory and promised not to cause any more pollution, but requested that the villagers contribute capital, causing Ji to feel worried. The next morning, the villagers flocked to the factory, shouting to demand back the money they had earned with sweat and blood. Ji was also present and heard Ma Yi say that after one night, this place had been cleaned up and the money had also been taken away. She called but couldn't get through. The villagers were all angry and devastated because that money was not easy to earn. Ji and Ma Yi tried to reassure everyone that they would find a way to get the money back. Meanwhile, Director Zhang, after receiving the money, felt remorseful and asked Mu Chun if he should do this, but he coldly threatened that his son was in his hands, and if he wanted him to live, he had to listen and not disobey. Anta could only bow his head and obey. On Ji's side, after reporting to the police, she and Jiang Cheng went to find and discover Zhang's hideout. She questioned him how he could take money from poor people, and he only shook his head and said it was for a living, and then admitted that everything was directed by Mu Chun. He kidnapped his son to control him, and if he could save his son, he would be willing to bear all the blame. Ji was stunned for a moment after hearing that, and then returned to the homestay to recount everything to everyone. Everyone was indignant knowing that they had been blatantly deceived by Mu Chun. At that time, Mu Chun was hurrying to collect all the money in the safe and stuff it into a suitcase to run away. Director Zhang knelt down, hugged his legs, and begged him to spare his son's life, but only received cruel kicks and cold threats. At that moment, the police rushed in and arrested him on the spot. Ji asked to say a few last words to him. He coldly confessed all the bad things he had done only because he wanted to get back with her, but she had chosen Jiang Cheng, which drove him crazy with jealousy. She looked at him with eyes full of disappointment, saying that he was beyond saving, and then quietly turned and left. That night, she sat alone drinking, her heart heavy with thoughts. Jiang Cheng came and sat next to her. She asked him what he liked about her, and he smiled, saying that love didn't need a reason, but if it did, it was that he liked everything about her, and then listed a bunch of things, causing both of them to laugh. She then asked if she had any flaws, and he softly replied that her biggest flaw was that she didn't like him as much as he liked her. She seriously replied that she liked him more as much as the space in her hand, and then spread out her hands. He said that she was drunk, but she denied it. He gently pulled her head up to face him, intending to kiss her, when suddenly Meng Jiao and Ma Yi, who were hiding in the corner, fell out, causing the two to have to stop. They apologized and said to continue, and then hurriedly ran away. Ji Yi pulled Jiang Chang closer, proactively giving him a gentle kiss, and then used the excuse to leave, but was pulled back by him into his arms, and he replied with a deep, loving kiss. Ji Yi gathered all the members of the homestay and suddenly announced that she wanted to sell the homestay. Everyone was shocked, silent, and didn't understand the reason, because this place was not only her hard work, but also the heart of everyone. Ji Yi explained that because the amount of money lost in the fraud was too large, she didn't want the villagers to fall into dire straits or anyone to bear the debt. Ms. Lin said with a choked voice that she would borrow money from her mother to help her overcome the difficulties. But he only gently refused because she didn't want anyone to work harder. She decided to sell this place so that everything would end peacefully in the sad eyes and undisguised disappointment of everyone. As night fell, Ji Yi quietly posted an ad to sell the homestay, tears silently falling as memories flooded back. The laughter in the kitchen, the sunlight on the porch, the familiar faces. She really couldn't bear to leave this place that contained her youth and beliefs. The next morning, she came to say goodbye to everyone. Secretary Ma, on behalf of the villagers, thanked her for her noble heart. The paperwork for the sale had been prepared, and the staff gave her a pen to sign when suddenly Jiang Chang rushed in. He snatched the documents, decisively canceling all transactions, his eyes resolute when he said that he would pay that amount of money, and this place didn't need to be sold. Meng Jiao cried out with joy that she could still work here, and asked where he got the money, and he only smiled and said that he got it from his parents. Only then did everyone know that he was born into a wealthy family. The conditions they gave was that he had to pay 50% of both the principal and interest, and he had to return to inherit the family business. With no other choice, he had to accept. Before leaving, he hugged Yi tightly, saying that this time he was leaving, but he would definitely return. Many years later, Dahai and his group became parking attendants. Ji's father also worked as a security guard, and the homestay became more and more developed with a steady stream of customers. On Ji Yi's birthday, Jiang Cheng returned from the city with a special gift, so Meng Jiao and Ms. Lin had to lead her to a place in a mysterious way. In the bustling space, he recounted the first day they met, talked about the longing for the past 7 years, and this time he would not let her slip away again. Under the witness of all the villagers, he knelt down to propose to her, taking out the one-of-a-kind ring that could only be bought once in a lifetime, saying that in this life he only loved her. She tearfully nodded. She happily hugged him, and the two exchanged a passionate kiss amid the applause and cheers of everyone. This is where the story ends. Don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss out on more amazing videos. For now, goodbye, and until next time.